Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Train Man, and welcome back to Zombie Train. This week we're building a little section of the area from Gelgor to Lambit. We didn't get all the track work done, but I didn't really intend to. Didn't have the time to either, so that's its own thing. I have other trains projects to be working on, largely the Iron Horseman Chronicles, which has a due date, so to speak. And despite me having to put out a video every week, this isn't what most of my train's time has gone towards. I've got to beautify things. Anyways, so a lot of my trouble came from figuring out what to do with some of these hills that are poking up there. Eventually I just decided to cut them off. But my other confusing bit came from Eldorado Canyon, which I kind of scrapped half of. You'll come to see that soon enough. But of course we spent a lot of this episode grading, and by grading I don't mean laying down grade, I mean adjusting the gradients. So there's a lot of back and forth, and there were some times where I wasn't sure if stuff was going to line up at all, so that brought about its own problems. But it ended up working out pretty nicely, as a matter of fact. And yeah, I managed to get this guy to wrap around and meet with its other end up there without too much trouble, or too heavy of grades. But speak of heavy grades, the rebuild of Eldorado Canyon was supposed to solve some of those gradient problems, and it solved some of them so far. There's a lot of terrain work that needs to be done in there, and pretty close to just scrapping the whole thing anyways, but it would involve moving aperture lumber, and that's not something I'm a fan of right now. Because I frankly I like the way it looks, and the water level is at the proper level. And so I have to have the track come out there, so I'm stuck with my heavy grades coming around that turn there. But of course, with aperture lumber being there, I can adjust gradients down to it, and then later, when you're driving the route, all you need to do is bring a helper to there, and then you can drop the helper and come back. Or send the helper back and continue up the hill. See, removing helpers at speed is kind of a thing, so that's tricksy. I'm not sure what the lowest grade I'm going to be able to get in there is. Okay, so I cleared away a bunch of track there, because I didn't like how it was looking, and I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. I honestly wasn't sure if I could manage to get from there to the passing siding up there without breaking my gradient limit, and I really don't think I set a short gradient limit, or else I'd be able to tell you if I broke it or not. But I ended up adjusting these guys to about 3%, and it worked out. As a matter of fact, I didn't see it coming, but it worked out. So something that I kept doing was I'd adjust them, and then I'd grab it and I'd go through all the rest of them and kind of create a nominal level for them to be at. And that helps because when you're adjusting one, you get it to a level, and then you adjust the one next to it, it can sometimes change the gradient level on the thing you just adjusted. That's a mouthful, but it's true. It's the up and down aspect will transfer through, I think, more than one different rail section, whereas the back and forth aspect won't. So it'll create awkward gradients, and it'll also just doing that helps with adjusting in the first place. So that's at about 40 something. I can't read the number, but if I recall, I was at 46-ish. And so I came over here and I was wondering if I could somehow possibly get up there, and I spent there's a lot of this episode that is frantic back and forth of me not quite sure what to do. But hopefully it'll be over rather quickly because we're moving at 3 times speed here. So I put on all these spline points, maybe overkill on the spline points, I'm not quite sure. And we eventually wrap around and find ourselves at the base of the other piece of track. And then, of course, I grab and copy repeatedly. We get this all set. So I keep moving along, and I think I've adjusted these guys to be a little bit higher in terms of gradient, just so that I can make it to our destination, which is at 46. And I really wasn't sure I was going to make it. In fact, I didn't think I was going to make it. One of the other things we do in the second half of this episode, which you'll see... Oh, there's no transition. I apologize for that. The second half of this episode, there's going to be the adjustment of the river, or kind of the decision-making of the river. There's going to be a very large waterfall, which is thankfully aligned with the coordinates, so if I can get a decent waterfall texture, or if I can find one, rather, then we'll be able to do that. If not, I don't know what we're going to do, because it's certainly too large for the waterfall sample. At any rate, though, it's going to be cool looking, and it's going to just run along the side of here. The other bit that I've had trouble with, or the reason that I decided to do the Eldorado Canyon rebuild in companion with this, is because, as you saw from last episode, this black line here that denotates where the track is going to go leads quite firmly into Eldorado Canyon. So this is me figuring out what height it's at. And I was like, okay. And, I mean, the more I look at Eldorado Canyon, the more I realize just how abysmal this place looks. It's really kind of sad. It's like someone threw, it's like the, okay, yeah. If anyone's ever seen the Mythbusters episode where they blew up paint cans to paint a room, that's what Eldorado Canyon looks like. To me. Now, over there we passed that 6% that leads in. Really, I'm not going to be able to do anything about that. I mean, I could do something about that, but I'd have to swing out and hit the farm over there. Not hit the farm, but interact with the farm that's out there in the middle of nowhere, and then kind of cut into the slope that I built there. And no, I'm not going to take the cop out and say it's because it's outside of Eldorado Canyon that I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it because it's not convenient, and I'm going to be doing a lot of work in Eldorado Canyon anyways. And there comes a point where I just don't want to do that much of a rebuild, despite how difficult it is to drive up there. Either way, I felt like this was the worst part anyways, because you lose all that speed coming up the canyon, and then you're confronted with the worst grades on the map. Which is fixed now. I'm bringing it down to a even 3%, and I think I'm going to be able to change that further with how this is going to line up here. I don't even know what I'm doing here. So I have to adjust this. It actually came to a stop earlier than I thought I would. There's a flat section down there. I thought I'd have to use up all of it, and I'm going to go back and use up all of it now that I'm solidified on my complete redoing of pretty much everything Eldorado Canyon. I'm not sure quite what I'm going to do, but what I think I'm going to... But an idea would be to have a plateau at about 300-ish, depending on how the Lambert Groves thing works out. I'm going to need to add another set of tiles on the left there. But depending on how the Lambert Groves things works out, have a plateau that's about at 300, which is a little bit higher than the current plateau we have, and then eat away at it to create the river, and I think that'll give a more realistic effect, as opposed to building up to get to it. I don't know. I'm about that realistic effect right now. I'm not really sure. I'm still refining my styles, as you guys know. I'll get there. Oh, I hate it when it does that. Alright, there's that. So we have this double track line that leads down into the canyon. Some of that bridge has become even taller. I thought it was ridiculous to begin with, but now it's worse. We have this big flat area, which I'm really not sure what to do with. Because, frankly, I didn't do what I did in the other maps, and I didn't plan for... or the other sections, rather, and didn't plan for the intersection of the sections, if that makes any sense. Need to be careful with that. So we come over here and we box off this area more or less. Then we come in and plateau it because it needs to be done. And this is going to be more or less the boundary for our river. I'm really not sure what I'm doing at this point. And I eventually just give up and go do something else. And then I come back to it. So you'll see that in just a minute, because I come over here and I put that down, which... Oops. Yeah, I used the wrong track. I was that picky. So I put that down, and then I'm kind of like, okay, well, I'll come back to this later. So I come over here and save. So we come back and we're here, and the first thing I do is lay down this piece of river, or river bottom. Now we've got... Now, once again, there's a lot of frantic camera movements where I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And I changed my mind on how I'm going to do this river. And so I curve it instead towards the cardinal direction, stop it, and then bring the other half of the river there to meet it. By the way, I like how I did that terrain on the left side there. So I'm going to try and emulate that. I'm just not sure how I did it. Not sure... I should say I'm not sure how I did it and made it look so good, because something like that in my head is going to come out terrible. I made this when I was bold enough to try bad ideas, and some of them worked and some of them didn't. Reminds me of something I talked about in the Terminus. Anyways, so I grab that height, and I build up the riverbank, although this may not be the permanent height of the riverbank. But it's a good start. It always is a good start to plateau something at your base level, like when you know something's not going to get any lower than a level. Because it's far easier to build up in this game than it is to build down, at least in my opinion. And just having that baseline, or, you know, saves you from doing a lot of down building. Well, if you place it right, I should say. If you place it too high, then you're stuck doing down building. But either or. I just think it's easier to fix awkward embankments than it is awkward cuts. Also, you can play off awkward embankments way better, because they're kind of a thing that would happen anyways. You don't necessarily see track descending into a cut unless it's for a very good reason. People tend to want to go for fill instead of cut for whatever reason. So I came over here to get the stone texture because I was like, alright, what can we do to make Eldorado Canyon look better? And so I grabbed the stone texture, and then I remembered how bland it looks on something like this, and that I'm probably going to need to rethink my building styles sooner rather than later. Next time I go ahead to do something mountainous. Fortunately, this area isn't very, very mountainous. It's just this canyon that's quite some. Which is why the pokey bits that stick above the plateau are totally out of place and need to be fixed. Then again, I'm about to evaporate the entire plateau. I liked this appearance, though, that I managed down here, so I went in to repeat it. Realized that it didn't really look nearly as good when it wasn't bordered by the tracks and the water, so I ditched it, eventually. Also, I'm still not sure which texture is the shiny texture, but I hope I don't use a lot of it. Okay, so sooner rather than later, I'm going to give up and start flattening things. Also, I try to get rid of this. Or, it takes me a while to get rid of this, I should say. I think that's just a thing sitting on the track, I can't get rid of it. Then I try to get rid of the building, and it gets rid of the whole thing. Then I realize that the sign is also a building, so I get rid of that too. The abandoned mine is going away for the time being, just because the entire canyon is going to be uprooted and rebuilt. I assure you that it will remain in place. But, until I go back and fix that, or until I go back and rebuild it, it's going to remain as is. So get rid of all the trees up here in preparation for, I don't know, destruction. And then the next phase is, I think I start uncoloring stuff, is that right? I can't see, my screensaver just turned on. I'm trying to turn it off. Anyways, this was just... am I still getting rid of trees? Or what? Come on, do something productive, self. Okay, so I'm gonna get out the... Yeah, there it is, the grid tool. And this is kind of a magical... I'm not sure what to call it, but just having an eraser like this is kind of amazing. It's just kind of an... It's... Okay. It's quite a feeling to mouse over this and then just have it turn back to gray. Because I'm so used to it being the way it was, and then, you know, gray is past and color is present, and then you're going over and it's all turning back to gray. It's like going back in time. Which almost is what is happening, to be honest. And then I come in here and I flatten it. I didn't realize how high that was, and I get a little bit panicky later, thinking that I screwed something up. But it all corrects itself in the end. Also, that hover track is going to be deleted as well. So I think the edge of the canyon is going to have to be one big sloping deal. Maybe with the side on the opposite side of the tracks being rock, and the side on this side being kind of dirt, or, you know, something softer than solid stone. I think that's very likely, considering how things are panning out and how things are going to look. So then I come in here and get rid of this. I'm in the wrong tab. I've been going in the wrong tab for stuff lately. I don't know why. Just lost my ability to go into the right spot for it. So I come down a lot because I was trying to contemplate vaporizing the rest of it, and then I came back to my original problem, which was having a sheer drop of any type. And of course, that's just generally a problem. And the easiest way to fix a problem like that is to use terrain tracks to blend the new and the old. No matter what kind of terrain you're working with, it'll create a nice plateau or not a plateau really, but what's the word? Without that plane tool that I was so very much hoping for, this is pretty much the easiest way to make a plane, as long as you're pretty adept with the terrain tracks, because they can be a pain in the butt if you don't know exactly what to do with them. And hell, I would know. I don't know exactly what to do with them, and they're a pain in the butt. So I make this ridge here, and then I come back to expand it several times. I'm still not sure what it's doing here, though. I may end up rebuilding the entire area, and in fact, I think that might be an even better bet. But the way aperture lumber is, I don't want to get rid of it, and that tunnel is kind of integral to how this place exists. So it's a decision I have to make as to how far I want to go with the deconstruction of the area. And so I was like, oh crap. So I left that dent there, and I went and fixed the dent. That made things better. To get rid of those 3 dinky trees, though. I don't know why they exist. It's like, oh, this place needs vegetation. Let's put 3 of the same tree and call it a day. So I put that there and went, no, this is terrible. Let's not do this. So I came back here and got rid of it. This is going to be a very interesting area, and it's probably going to involve a lot of, no, I didn't like that. Let's go back and try again. Especially with basically this area being a let's go back and try again, with most of the interesting terrain being in Eldorado Canyon. Trust me, I intend there to be no interesting terrain between here and Lambert. None. It's all going to be just boring. Actually, more accurately, it's just going to be sloped forest, and the reason we're zigzagging across it is it's too heavily sloped to drive a train up, obviously, but it's good enough that we can dodge back and forth. And it presents a nice long ride. Nice long scenic ride. Thankfully we can stay on this side of the river. Still don't know why I kept going up there, I just was confused. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do for a while. Then I decided to come along here and give this river a bank. Which I guess is going to be okay, and it's going to help when I go to take care of the other part, which is ahead of this. The first thing that I'm probably going to get done is the path of this river with the waterfall and all, because as we know, the rivers are some of the defining features. The water features are some of the most defining things on this map. We have one... I don't think there's any town without a water feature. Oh, no, that's true. There isn't a town without a water feature. There's one that doesn't have one right now, but there's not a town on the map that shouldn't. Caps Junction has a very large lake, but I haven't built that lake yet. It's just something I gotta get to. Whenever we build out of Caps, I'll take care of the lake. Probably Caps to Modico would include that lake. I'm not sure what Caps to Ullerston would entail, honestly. It's just kind of... wasn't something I was thinking too heavily on. It just runs through forests. So I came over here for some unfathomable reason, and then went back. I was a little scatterbrained when making this. Last thing I do in this episode, though, is take care of some actual terrain, like start to make some of this area look good. And the first order of business was to take care of the two hills that are right here, and surprisingly enough, they didn't turn out terrible. They were far better than what I'd expected to come of them. It's just, when we had something like that, frankly, my problem was that I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain why the hills would be like this. And I still can't. I'm just guessing they're mounds of whatever left over from before. And I'm not even sure when before would be. But, there's mounds of dirt and stone. Why they have a little gap between them is nobody's business. I have no idea. But it also occurs to me that because that ground cover is there, I'm going to have to be putting the Maple Beach birch on top of it. So we're going to have just Maple Beach birch on these hills. And that'll probably clear up a lot of the terrain problems. Because covering things with trees actually does tend to help in terms of appearance. Figured that out when I was building Troy to Providence on the Iron Horseman Railroad. It's very heavily treed, and for that I excused the fact that the ground is one color and the terrain variation is provided by one brush that I just kind of wiped over everything. The actual important scenery is all down, and that's the grass and trees, and that's what makes things good, makes things look the best. Because you're not going to be able to see the single-colored ground or wonky terrain underneath all those trees. And if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. Why I paused there, I couldn't tell you. I've got to get ahead of myself in video making. Honestly, now that I've gotten back here, it's kind of fallen off. So I'll try and get one video ahead these days, some days in the future. Once I finish Troy to Providence, most of my hardest work will be done. Well, no, sorry, I've got to connect the Davenport line to Troy, and then I should be okay. Other than that, I don't know. I've got the 2-foot gauge to build, but just like Weibald's building his 3-foot gauge, I'm going to probably build that in sections and not worry too much about what's in between until I have the spare time to build it. You know, I could have taken the opportunity to make a couple episodes building that instead, but honestly, it's... well, spoilers for one, but it's the same deal, honestly. And I could get work done on both of them, so why not? Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next week. Be sure to leave a comment, like, subscribe, whatever. Trainman out.